Yo, what's going on, guys? My name is Alex, and today we're going to continue on with my award predictions, and we've gone through Defensive Player of the Year, Rookie of the Year, MVP, so if you missed those videos, make sure to go check them out. But today, we're going to be talking about the Coach of the Year. Now, this award is kind of easy to kind of find out who is going to win it. Most of the time, it's going to go to either a team that is maybe the top 1 or 2 seed in their respective conference, or a team that just significantly improved from the season before and overall just beat a lot of expectations that were set on them before the season. So with that being said, the coaches that I have picked that I think are kind of going to be in the running this year are based off those kind of expectations and what has happened in the past couple of years. I have 6 candidates, 3 from each conference, and we're going to start out with the Eastern Conference. And for my first candidate, who I think could potentially win Coach of the Year, it's Jamahl Mosley of the Orlando Magic. Now, last year, the Orlando Magic weren't really all that good. They were obviously a lottery team. They won 34 games last year, but with how high I am on guys like Franz Wagner and Paolo Banchero, and even Jet Howard and Anthony Black, which are those 2 guys they just drafted, I can see the Magic really making a leap, and I think I'm higher on the Magic than I think a lot of people are. So because of that reason, I can see them being maybe a borderline 40-win team, very similar to what the Thunder were doing last year. And if they could potentially sneak into this little play-in tier between the 7th to 10th seed, I can see Jamahl Mosley getting a lot of credit. Jamahl Mosley isn't the best coach in the NBA by any means, but he also isn't the worst. I would say he's probably somewhere between the top 15 to top 20 coach in the NBA, but there's a lot of really just solid coaches in the NBA. And I think Jamahl Mosley does a really good job with really just setting up his lineups, especially with how versatile and big the Magic are. The Magic just have guys who are just big and can do lots of different things on the court, and I think Jamahl Mosley overall does a really good job of utilizing that talent around him. And I think that's going to be a big reason why the Magic end up being pretty successful this year. So again, if they are able to sneak into that play-in tournament and win close to like 40, maybe even slightly above 500, I think that's going to exceed a lot of people's expectations, and I think Jamahl Mosley should definitely get a lot of credit for that. Moving on into my next Eastern Conference team, and I have Adrian Griffin of the Milwaukee Bucks. So the Bucks are obviously going to be one of the better teams in the East. Obviously, it's up between the Bucks or the Celtics, so they're going to get the 1st or 2nd seed in my opinion. And it's going to be interesting because the Bucks have always been successful once Giannis actually came into his peak, but this is going to be the first time where the Bucks are actually going to have a new head coach while they're trying to compete for a championship. And I think with this head coaching change and also just the different dynamics of the team in terms of roster construction, I think that kind of just resets the playing field for the Bucks. And if the Bucks can really push themselves as a 60-win team, I think that Adrian Griffin would get a lot of credit for this. Of course, yes, this team has Dame and Giannis and Middleton and Brook Lopez. It's a very talented team. But again, I feel like because of all these changes that have happened, and with Adrian Griffin coming in, he's not really an offensive-minded coach. But if he can continue to show his defensive prowess and just kind of his defensive mind while also tweaking the offensive end of the Bucks, because I think the Bucks have kind of struggled on the offensive end and how to really truly harness the power of Giannis. If Adrian Griffin can just do the most obvious thing, really the most obvious thing would just make Giannis the roll man, with Dame, being in the pick and roll and stuff, doing the same thing with like Chris Middleton as well. I think this would do wonders for the Bucks, and it's a big reason why I'm pretty high on this Bucks team, even though many people are. But I can see the Bucks pushing as a 60-win team. So if that is the case, I think Adrian Griffin would have a very real shot of winning the Coach of the Year. For my last Eastern Conference team, we're going to look at the Boston Celtics, and it'd be Joe Mazzulla. Look, I don't think Joe Mazzulla is the best coach ever, but that's just based off of last season alone. And if we think about the circumstance he was thrown into, the whole Ime Udoka situation happened, and very, very last minute, he was kind of thrown in there as the head coach, and he ended up doing a pretty decent job, I would say, with kind of his circumstances that he had. With a newly constructed team with Porzingis and Drew Holiday on this team now, and now a whole offseason to kind of figure out what he wants his philosophies to be, as an offensive-minded coach as well, I think Joe Mazzulla can really prove himself to be a pretty solid coach. Just like the Bucks, I think the Celtics can very well push towards a 60-win season. And if that were to be the case, then yeah, I think Joe Mazzulla should definitely get a lot of credit. Again, like the Bucks, the Celtics have a lot of different turnarounds in terms of their roster. Their depth isn't as great as it has been in these past couple of seasons. But if Joe Mazzulla can figure that out and still be, a top 3, top 5 offense and defense in the league, dude, that's pretty freaking impressive. And if he is showing improvements in terms of like X's and O's and maybe even timeout management, which is something that he is pretty funny about him, then yeah, I think Joe Mazzulla should definitely get a lot of credit for what he does this next season. Moving on into the Western Conference, and we're going to start off with the Oklahoma City Thunder and their head coach, Mark Daigneault. I think the Thunder are in a very similar light to me as the Orlando Magic, except now the Thunder, I think, are just an overall better team than the Magic, and they showed that last year, winning 40 games. But again, with the improvement of all of these young talent like Shea, Giddey, Chet Holmgren coming into his rookie season, J-Dub going to get better as well, having Lou Dort as well, just being an absolute defensive guy on the perimeter. I'm really high on this Thunder team, and I can seriously see them pushing somewhere around 48, maybe even 50 wins this year. And I don't think a lot of people are really projecting them to be that good. I think people are definitely giving them their due respect, which they deserve. I just think I'm willing to give them a little bit more credit for how good I think they are than most people. So again, if they are going to be pushing 48 wins, 50 wins, Mark Daigneault should definitely be getting a lot of credit. And he is actually a really good head coach. I think Mark Daigneault does a really good job of really maximizing a lot of the talent on the roster. And I don't think he does anything particularly really crazy in terms of throwing out 3-guard lineups and stuff like that. I think he's just very smart, very methodical about who he puts out there on the court. And overall, I think that's going to do wonders for this Thunder team. Because again, like the Magic, it's just so funny how all these teams are very similar to each other. And I just have their coaches, being in this race. But with all of this lineup versatility that the Thunder have, I think it would really be hard to go wrong with anything. Because this team is just overly talented with a bunch of young prospects. And I think Mark does a really good job of, again, just maximizing everyone on the floor. So as long as winning comes along with it, I think he definitely deserves to be in this race. He was last year. Next up, we have Mike Malone of the Denver Nuggets, and the Denver Nuggets are yet again going to be one of the best teams in the West. I can very well see them being a #1 seed again this year, and Mike Malone definitely got recognition for it last year, maybe with people kind of leaning more into the Nuggets and believing them a little bit more. Maybe they give Mike Malone a little bit more respect. Again, I think Mike Malone is probably a borderline top 10 head coach. I don't think he's one of the best, but I do think he is a well above average coach in the NBA. Sure, are his bench units kind of weird with having Jamal Murray plus 4 bench guys? Yeah, I don't really know how that works, but in the playoffs, his rotations were tight. And with having someone like Jokic, I think he just sets up beautiful plays to not only maximize Jokic, but to maximize everyone on the floor. And I think it'd be really interesting to see how Mike Malone can coach these young guys, because a lot of the depth that the Nuggets have are going to be rookies with Jalen Pickett, Hunter Tyson, and Julian Strawther. If just one of those guys, and I think it will be Strawther, if one or two of those young guys that they just drafted can really show some promise early in the regular season and continue to get better, yes, it's going to be credit to those players for actually showing up when needed, but I think Mike Malone can really put those guys in really good situations, and it helps when you guys have like Jokic as well. But I think Mike Malone definitely deserves some sort of credit for that. And if the Nuggets are yet again a #1 seed in the West and arguably one of the best teams in the league, yeah, Mike Malone should definitely be in this conversation. And for our last head coach that we're going to be talking about on who I think will win Coach of the Year, I have Frank Vogel of the Phoenix Suns. Look, overall, I'm not too high on the Suns in terms of them winning a championship, but this team is gonna win a lot of regular season games. I could very well see them being a 2nd or 3rd seed. Their offense is gonna be off the chain with Beal, Booker, and KD. And while Frank Vogel is known as a defensive-minded guy, if he's able to at least give the Suns maybe a borderline top 10 defense, I think they're gonna be probably the best offense in the league. But if they have a borderline top 10 defense and they are the 2nd or 3rd seed, or even potentially the 1st seed, depending on how things go in the Western Conference, Frank Vogel definitely deserves credit, especially as a first-year coach for this team, and with all the turnaround that the Suns have gone through over the offseason. I don't think this is going to be an easy job, despite how talented this roster is, at least at the top with your big three. This is not an easy job, so if Frank Vogel is able to do everything on the offense and defensive end, coach them the right way, and is leading to winning, yeah, again, Frank Vogel deserves to be in this conversation for sure. Now, when it comes to who I think is going to win Coach of the Year, I think I would have to go with Mark of the Oklahoma City Thunder. Mark, for sure. And again, I just think I'm higher on the Thunder than most people are, but I can very well see them pushing that 50-win threshold, I guess, and the games played doesn't matter for a head coach, at least from my understanding. Maybe he's sick for like a half the season, who knows, and he just can't coach, but he's definitely the front runner for who I think is going to win Coach Coach of the Year. I think they're going to win a lot of games. I think they're really going to blow people out of the water. They're going to be better than I think most people are expecting. And yes, this team is very young, and I think those young guys definitely deserve credit for, establishing a winning culture. But Mark is going to do what he needs to do to make sure that they are put in advantageous situations to succeed. And because of that reason, I think he's going to end up winning Coach of the Year this year. But hey, those are my thoughts on the Coach of the Year race. Let me know down below what y'all think. If you enjoyed, make sure to like and sub. I'm trying to get to 1,000 subs by the end of the year, so it means a lot. Make sure to check out my socials down below in the description. You can also check out this video somewhere on the screen. Anyways, I'll see you on the next one. Peace out.